book called The Gay Gospels, Good News for Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual and Transgendered People by Keith Sharp. Now, it doesn't go into as much depth as I would like it to, but it does give a great overview
of different
and
passages,
then there are things that you can look up later. And there were two things that I was reading about. The first, which I want to look into more, was about the beloved disciple. So in John's Gospel, in several instances, there are points where this disciple is talked about, a disciple that is never given a name and never given a role or a purpose other than the disciple whom Jesus loved. And I was like, why has no one ever really brought that up for me before? You know, it's either suggested that Jesus never had a close relationship with anybody individually, or you've got people who suggested he had a relationship with Mary Magdalene. No one has ever mentioned that he might have had a close relationship with a male disciple.
And what we mean is a loving relationship.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
So there was this, let me see if I can find and this is something that has been talked about, that it goes back to, like, he's got things from like the 16th century onwards, you know. It's not a new thing. So in John 13:21 to 26, when Jesus says that one of the disciples is going to, what's the word I want? I've lost the word I want. Someone's going to betray him. That's the word I wanted. Why could I not think of the word betray? And it says, now there was leaning on Jesus's bosom one of his disciples whom Jesus loved. Simon Peter therefore beckoned to him that he should ask who it should be of whom he spoke. He then, lying on Jesus's breast, said unto him, Lord, who is it? And then Jesus answered. So there's this idea in here that there was a male disciple who was lovingly leaning against Jesus's chest. And when Simon Peter wanted to know something, he didn't ask Jesus outright, he asked that person. That's kind of like you'd do to someone's partner. You'd go, well, what does he mean by that?
And you know, just to stress, we're not saying that what it means is that he was homosexual in any way, but it was a dynamic.
Yeah.
It was a dynamic.
And we're saying that this
was there.
That this was put into the gospel. Why was that put into the gospel? We're not saying that this literally happened. We've never said any of this literally happened. We're saying from a narrative point of view, and I see this, I guess, as a writer, everything that is in there for a reason. It is there to point you to something. We'll talk about when we're watching a film or something, and the amount of times I know what's going to happen next, and you'll go, how do you know what's going to happen next? And I go, well, they've shown us this and they've shown us that, and that must have meant something, and there must have been an importance to this thing, and the only logical conclusion is this. And within a narrative framework, everything that happens and ends up in the end product has a purpose. Now, it doesn't have to be literally true for it to be a universal truth.
Or a transformative truth.
Yeah.
You know, it was, he could love somebody and have him close to that person and accept that person, you know.
And it doesn't have to, look at the LGBTQ community. It doesn't have to be a sexual thing. We have asexual and aromantic people.
Yeah.
That you can have a dearly deep platonic relationship with someone that goes beyond your platonic love for other people, but still doesn't progress into
and it can be
sexuality.
Yeah, and it can be romantic in the sense of them being so dear to you and them being important to you. And I think, you know, we've pride ourselves in this binary of having a partner and, you know, being a man and wife, and always having that dynamic with that binary, where in fact real life is actually a lot more grey, and you can have people that are dearly beloved to you, you know, as David did. He had lots of male male people in his life who were dearly beloved to him and cared for deeply and were important to him. And it says he loves them in the text. And so that dynamic is a loving kindness of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And what that could be reflected into the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, it says here,
should be reflected into the world.
It says here later in John when Jesus is on the cross. It says, meanwhile, this is from John 19:25 to 27. Meanwhile, standing near the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved, again, the disciple whom he loved is mentioned not without a name, but that way. So when Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing beside her, he said to his mother, "Woman, here is your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Here is your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her into his own home. So it was that whole thing again that goes back to that widowing thing. In that time, you took people into your family, into your home to protect them,
to care for them.
So, there's this idea again that there was a disciple who Jesus cared about and wanted to make sure was protected like he had a family.
And he also wanted his mother to accept
that this was someone who was important to him.
And would protect her and love her and care for her.
As a son would.
Yeah. And I think, we as humans, we like to put things in boxes and have everything ticked off.
Mm-hmm.
But in fact, we're a lot more messy and we're a lot more grey.
Mm-hmm.
And there aren't boxes for a lot of the things that we experience in life.
Mm-hmm.
And our tendency is to try and fit everything in one box. And in fact, there are more dynamic relationships in the world that we could be open to.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's just a reflection of that.
Mm.